Whiplash is a 2014 movie directed by Damien Chazelle about a student who, when pressured by a tough teacher, decides to become an excellent drummer. Hey everyone, I haven't uploaded anything in a while, and I've been writing longer videos, so in the meantime I wanted to share with you some opinions that might not be too popular, but I hope you will find interesting. My experience with Whiplash is detailed on my letterbox, so I won't get into too much detail here, but I finished it just this year. I hadn't finished it, but I had heard in all that time that the ending is the best part and that it's one of the best endings ever. And yeah, the ending is 20 minutes long, and it's the grand drumming performance. It's very impressive, very skillful. But after I finished, I was convinced that the way that I had felt about the movie for all these years was the same. The most outstanding thing about this movie is the character Fletcher, excellently performed by J.K. Simmons. He's so over the top, so exaggerated. After I had first seen the movie, or at least the first half, I laughed, at his antics, not quite my tempo and all that. But something about him and the way and his way of thinking really irked me. Miles dislikes Fletcher, but nevertheless believes in him. He agrees with his conception of artistry. And after the first class with him, he is convinced that he, as a drummer, is deficient, that he needs to really improve himself. And that is where the obsession begins. He puts himself through this extenuating training that leaves him with a bloody hand. And he's so focused on not missing, a good spot, let's say a good gig, to the point that he gets into a crash and shows up bleeding all over the drum kit. And this is of course not framed as reasonable. Like, to this extent, pursuing your obsession is not good. But in the sense that Fletcher conceives artistry, this is perfectly fine. In fact, it's what should happen. Fletcher's entire viewpoint is synthesized in this line: there are no two words more harmful in the English language than good job. This mentality is all about not giving up, but also not giving up at your own cost, at the cost of your own safety or even sanity. For what? For perfection, for artistry, for true artistry, to be a legend. This is something I don't agree with. And I don't think the audience is meant to either. But in the context of the movie, we have to understand it. Having ambitions will certainly get you far, and hard work will also get you far as an artist. But what matters ultimately is your own satisfaction with your art. Many people who do art are not very satisfied with it, or are not very confident. But after you get to a point professionally, artists really stop caring about what others say or even think, like positive or negative, but especially negative. Artists have gigantic egos which defend them from criticism, and that's why we have so many bad artists who are very proud of what they do and can explain to you their creative process and see themselves as artists because they are, but they're not too bothered by the opinions of anyone else. And the gist here is that Miles is not trying to overcome his own expectations primarily. He wants instead to impress Fletcher because that's where he sees that true perfection, true artistry is. But he probably will never be able to do that because Fletcher is also not very interested, not easily fazed, and in his position he can easily demand more and more each time. And to what end? At the final recital, at the ending, Miles starts showing off. After, we'll discuss that later, but he starts showing off, and Fletcher is angry at him He even tells him that he'll gouge his eyes, and you get the idea. And sure, at the end, he is moved, he is impressed. But as you see, he's not left speechless, or he's not like totally stunned. He instead eggs him on. He tells Miles to keep it up. Obsession is destructive, and if you you don't have a limit, of course, then you will never be truly content. Well, that's obviously a different point, and like, what is desire? Can we ever be content? And like, realistically, like here, there are standards, of course, and there are expectations that you eventually reach, and that's perfectly fine. There is always room for improvement as an artist, but again, not at the cost of your dignity, of your well-being. It's not necessary to do all this charade of torturing students and to maybe get another Charlie Parker, as if we needed more Charlie Parkers instead of new, different artists. The mentality that Fletcher has, despite Miles believing that it's so great and correct, it hasn't worked out at all. Again, by his own admission, Fletcher is a failed artist, and he can only pressure others into doing what he cannot. It doesn't matter if Miles is accepted into a prestigious conservatory, or if he gets into a grand music school, or if Fletcher actually beat him up afterwards. Nevertheless, the important part was Miles showing what that pressure can be channeled as. Sure, it's a very impressive performance, but again, was that necessary? Was that necessary? And the answer is no. So those are my discrepancies with the movie Whiplash and its ideas about artistry. I simply didn't buy that Miles still, after being physically and verbally abused by this teacher, that he still believed that he was in the wrong, that he would be so easily convinced that he had no potential or the makings of an artist, of an excellent drummer. Because again, artists at some point, they're just too confident even. I really don't know any artist that is not proud in some sense. And to wrap up, I'll say more things that I disagree with, but this time about jazz. Okay, but before that, let me preface by saying that I don't like the movie. I really, really, really disagree with its message and think that it can be very counterproductive. But especially since I see a lot of people taking it seriously. But it's a good movie. Like, it's well performed, well filmed, well scored, everything good. Firstly, jazz is absolutely not dying. It's alive and well. Like, even a year after it came out, after the movie came out, Kamasi Washington put out an excellent jazz record. It's only a matter of finding it, but jazz is still here with us, still evolving. And the ending, while certainly, again, impressive, I myself tried drumming along with Miles, just, as a physical challenge. It's not, the greatest ending that I've seen. And also, in terms of musicianship, playing fast and loud is not the only way to emphasize in jazz or in music in general. To the contrary, like, have you listened to Bitches Brew? It's quaint, it's very subtle, and it's one of Davis's most masterful records. Or one of my favorite jazz songs, A Night in Tunisia, the ensemble performance with Mingus, Powell, Gillespie, Parker, Roach. It's again very quaint, almost uneventful, compared with the version played by Gillespie, Sandoval, and Said Abdul Al-Kabir, which is very flashy, very showy, and it's one of the most insane performances ever. The technique, like technical prowess, is not only demonstrated through extremely fast and loud playing, through like mindless chromatism. It's about, like, again, like the sublime, the aesthetic, the beauty. So there is not one way to play impressively. That's what I want to say. I think this is the least angry I've been while talking about this movie. I think I'm making my peace with it. Well, I hope you enjoy this, and I will be making similar videos soon. Follow me on my social media if you want to check out my art, and we'll see each other on the next video. Bye.